Have you ever taken a shortcut through your local public park right after dusk?
Oh, I think we all have at some point.
Right. You know that exact moment I'm talking about. The sun dips down. The streetlights haven't quite warmed up yet. They're doing that weird flickering thing.
Yeah, buzzing a little bit.
Exactly. The shadows stretch out, and suddenly the atmosphere just fundamentally shifts.
It really does.
The familiar playground equipment, the walking paths, the benches, they all suddenly feel, well, incredibly alien. And that sudden shift from safety to terror isn't just your imagination playing tricks on you.
No, not at all. It is a highly documented psychological phenomenon.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are dissecting 3 first-hand accounts. These are transcripts of real personal stories shared online, where that subtle shift in the atmosphere turned into a literal fight for survival.
It's a fascinating batch of sources we have today.
It really is. Our mission for this deep dive is to analyze the anatomy of fear in these recreational spaces. We really want to understand exactly what breaks inside the human brain when the sun goes down.
Because, public parks are essentially designed as shared sanctuaries.
Right.
During the day, they're governed by a very strict, unspoken community consensus. But when we strip away the daylight, we're forced to examine how fragile that perception of safety really is. We are looking at how a place built specifically for leisure can instantly revert to a landscape of genuine, primal terror.
I've been thinking about this all morning, actually. I kind of look at a public park at night, like a theater stage, right after the audience has left and the director has gone home.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because during the day, there's a script, right? Kids play on the swings, people walk their golden retrievers, you sit on a bench and eat a sandwich. Everyone knows their role.
They're playing their parts.
Exactly. But when the sun goes down, that script is completely stripped away. The physical stage is still exactly the same, but the social rules that govern it, they're entirely gone.
That is the perfect analogy. You are describing the collapse of this social contract.
The social contract.
Right. The script of safety is entirely dependent on daylight and really the watchful eyes of the community. Remove those 2 elements and the environment doesn't just become empty, it becomes wildly unpredictable. It reverts back to a state of nature.
Which brings us to our first account. And this one really, it fundamentally messes with that concept of a predictable environment. We're looking at a story involving a group of 13-year-old kids.
Which is a very specific age for this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is back in a time when kids rode their bikes absolutely everywhere. It's a Saturday night, they're hanging out, making way too much noise in someone's backyard, and the parents tell them to leave. So they ride over to the neighborhood park. It's just a 5-minute ride. The park has a baseball field, bleachers, and a decently sized playground. And because they're 13, they decide to climb up and hang out on the playground structure itself.
Right, climbing up where you're not really supposed to sit.
Yeah, it's elevated, it's partially enclosed.
I expect.
It feels like a safe vantage point for them.
At that age, a playground at night feels like a clubhouse. They feel a real sense of territorial ownership over that space. It is built for them, after all.
Right, until they realize they aren't alone.
Yeah, the turning point.
They're just sitting up there in the dark, and suddenly they hear a distinct thud.
A heavy footstep.
A heavy footstep on the physical playground structure right beneath them. They look around, they even call out into the dark, but they don't see anyone. So, they shrug it off and settle back down.
Because kids rationalize things.
They try to, yeah.
Yeah.
But then they hear something else. A voice. Specifically a child's voice, sounding like a toddler, coming directly from inside one of those enclosed, twirling metal slides.
Now, let's stop right there and look at the behavioral science of what is happening in their brains.
Please, because this part is wild.
This triggers immediate severe cognitive dissonance. The human brain operates on a system called predictive coding. We constantly predict what sensory input should logically follow a specific scenario.
Okay.
A twirling metal slide is a contained acoustic environment. If an acoustic signal, like a voice, comes from inside it, physics dictates there must be a physical body inside it.
But, I'm struggling with something here. Kids hear weird noises in the dark all the time, right?
Constantly.
Wind, animals, weird echoes. Why did this specific noise immediately escalate to a feeling of absolute terror? Why couldn't they just rationalize it as a prank or a strange echo?
Because of the specificity of the sound. An echo doesn't have the phonetic structure of a toddler speaking. And the human brain's auditory localization is actually quite good. They knew exactly where the sound was coming from.
Right, the tube.
Exactly. When the sensory input, the voice, violates the physical reality of an empty slide, predictive coding fails entirely. The brain cannot resolve the error. It's not just a spooky sound, it's a structural failure of their reality.
That makes so much sense. And honestly, it gets weirder. One of the kids actually walks over to the top of the slide and asks, "Is someone in there?"
Brave kid.
Yeah. And the voice replies clearly and calmly, "Hello."
Unbelievable.
The teenager even asks if the kid needs help. Just silence. So, operating under the assumption that a literal toddler has somehow gotten stuck in the tube, the 13-year-old actually climbs into the slide and slides down.
He commits to finding out.
He does. He's fully bracing himself to bump into a lost kid in the dark. But he hits the wood chips at the bottom, and the slide is completely empty.
The physics just don't work out.
They scan the entire ground level, they check every shadow, every hiding spot under the platforms. There is not a soul in sight.
And that is the exact moment the fear transitions. It goes from surprise or even genuine concern for a lost child to something deeply existentially unsettling.
Yeah.
When the cause and effect relationship of the physical world breaks down, the human brain interprets that anomaly as an apex threat.
And here's where the story shifts from just unsettling to deeply malevolent. They are standing at the bottom of the structure, thoroughly freaked out, trying to make sense of the empty slide, and then that same toddler voice echoes from the metal tube a second time. Except this time it says, "Catch me."
That phrase completely shatters any remaining rationalization.
Right.
Catch me implies intention. It implies an active awareness of the teenagers. It is an invitation to a game from a biological source that physically should not exist in that space.
So naturally, the kids bolt. They don't even hesitate. They grab their bikes and pedal faster than they ever have in their lives, racing through the suburban streets back to a friend's house.
Flight response in full effect.
Totally. They drag their bikes into the backyard, close the wooden gate, and huddle up, trying to catch their breath and stay quiet so they don't wake the parents inside. And just as their heart rates are starting to come down, just as they are processing what they survived,
The boundary gets crossed.
yes, there's a knock at the backyard gate. Not a frantic pounding knock, a polite, deliberate tap, like someone patiently asking for permission to enter.
Notice the geography of the fear here. They fled the scary environment, the park, and retreated behind the boundary of the home, assuming the social contract of private property would protect them.
But it absolutely doesn't. An unfamiliar woman's voice speaks through the wood, says hello, and then calmly asks, "Were you guys just at the park before?"
Terrifying.
One of the kids creeps forward and peeks through a tiny millimeter-wide crack between the wooden fence planks. On the other side is a middle-aged woman standing alone in the pitch black, with a massive, wide, unnatural grin on her face.
And the eye contact.
That's the worst part. She is already looking right through that exact crack. She is making direct, dead-on eye contact with the kid the second he looks, as if she knew precisely where his eye would be.
She was waiting for him.
Yeah. She doesn't rattle the latch, she doesn't try to force her way in, she just stands there smiling in the dark, even after the kids lie and deny being at the park. They end up abandoning the yard, fleeing into the house, and deadbolting the doors.
The psychological weight of this conclusion is immense. The true horror isn't just the unexplainable voice in the playground slide.
No.
It is that the threat refused to stay in its designated box. It followed them home. It completely shattered the mental boundary we all rely on between the scary, unpredictable outside world and our safe, impenetrable sanctuary.
Now, in the source material we reviewed, the person recounting the story mentions that over the years, they really tried to offer a rationalization. They tried to convince themselves that maybe it was just a lost hiding kid in the park, and that grinning woman was just a stressed out mother looking for her child.
People will do anything to make a scary memory make logical sense.
Right, but I have to firmly push back on that. The logistics of that rationalization are completely impossible.
I absolutely agree with you. If we look at the pure mechanics of the event, the rationalization completely falls apart.
Think about the spatial logistics. First off, how does a biological toddler vanish from an enclosed metal slide instantly without being seen by 3 teenagers actively looking for them?
They don't.
Exactly.
Ah.
But second, and honestly far more importantly, these kids fled on bicycles. They were pedaling in an absolute adrenaline-fueled panic. How could a woman on foot track a group of speeding bikes through winding suburban streets in the dark and know exactly which specific backyard gate they retreated behind?
It's what you might call impossible geometry.
Impossible geometry, yeah.
It completely defies spatial and temporal logic. For a pedestrian to track speeding cyclists in the dark and arrive almost simultaneously, it implies a mode of transit or an awareness that just doesn't align with reality.
Exactly. It's a glitch in reality. You have the total suspension of physics at the slide, followed by the impossible geometry of this woman tracking them. It violates how the physical world is supposed to operate.
Which is precisely why this specific encounter left a permanent scar on their memories.
Yeah.
But let's pivot for a moment. We've seen how the brain breaks down when the physics of a space seem to shatter. But what happens when the physics are perfectly normal, but the social rules of the space are weaponized against you?
Okay, yes.
That happens when the threat isn't an impossible phantom in a slide, but a physical human being sitting on a bench.
This brings us to our second account from the summer of 2018. The storyteller lives in a quiet suburban town, the kind of place where everyone leaves their doors unlocked and thinks it's perfectly safe to be out at any hour.
A false sense of security.
Exactly. They just finished a late, exhausting work shift and decide to hit the local park for a walk to clear their head. The sun has set, the path lights are on, everything smells like fresh-cut grass. It is the picture of suburban peace. They have their headphones in, volume kept low, but then the atmosphere shifts.
The subtle escalation in this environment is really crucial to understand. The threat here doesn't announce itself with a loud noise or a visible weapon. It begins purely with observation.
The walker passes a man sitting alone on a park bench in the shadows. He's wearing a thick hoodie with the hood pulled tightly up, which immediately registers as wrong because it's a warm summer night.
That's anomaly number one.
Right, he's just sitting there, staring straight ahead. But as the walker passes the bench, they realize the man's eyes are completely locked onto them. He doesn't turn his head to follow them.
He just shifts his eyes.
He just shifts his eyes, tracking their movement. So the walker understandably picks up the pace. A few moments later, they hear a distinct set of footsteps behind them. The walker pauses. The footsteps pause. The walker continues. The footsteps continue, perfectly matching their cadence.
Let's analyze this from an evolutionary psychology perspective.
Let's do it.
This mirroring behavior is deeply intrinsically predatory. By matching the pace exactly, the stalker is communicating absolute control without saying a single word.
It's psychological warfare.
It really is. It is a nonverbal subjugation. The stalker is basically telling the victim, you do not control your own movements anymore. I dictate what happens next.
I have to admit, I genuinely struggled to understand something about the aftermath of this story, but let's look at the actual chase first.
Okay.
The walker tries to lose him. They turn down a smaller, poorly lit side trail, hoping to loop back to the main street faster. They glance back, and the guy from the bench is on the trail right behind them. And he's not casually strolling. He is moving with this slow, rigid, deliberate intent.
He's committed to the hunt.
Yeah. The walker pulls out their phone and pretends to make a call, speaking loudly. The guy doesn't flinch. The walker breaks into a light jog. The stalker breaks into a light jog, maintaining the exact same 20-foot distance.
The mirroring continues.
Finally, the walker just panics, breaks into an absolute dead sprint for the street exit, and the heavy footsteps behind them immediately speed up, matching the sprint stride for stride.
And what happens when the victim finally breaches the boundary of the park and reaches the safety of the street?
The stalker just stops, dead in his tracks, right at the edge of the park. Just standing perfectly still in the shadows of the tree line, watching the victim run away. The walker makes it home shaking, locking every door. But here's the part that confuses me.
What's that?
During the chase, the adrenaline makes complete sense. Your life is in danger. But in the days and weeks that followed, this victim reported being completely tormented. They were jumping at moving shadows, terrified of passing cars, feeling constantly watched in their own home. Why couldn't this victim just shake it off once they were safe inside their house? Why did the fear last for weeks?
Because of the psychological torture of an unstated motive. Think about how the human brain processes trauma. When a threat makes its intentions known, let's say a mugger jumps out and demands your wallet, the event has a clear narrative arc.
Okay, yeah.
There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. You lose your wallet, the mugger leaves, the threat is over. The brain can process that and file it away. But this silent stalker offered no resolution.
Because he never spoke, he never attacked.
Exactly. Because there was no definitive action, the brain is left with an unfinished puzzle. It endlessly simulates worst-case scenarios. Why was he following me? What was he going to do? Where is he now?
It just loops and loops.
Yes. This ambiguity breeds a pervasive long-term paranoia. The victim's brain is stuck in a permanent state of hypervigilance, fundamentally altering how they navigate their own neighborhood.
And the physical evidence they found later only made that paranoia worse.
Oh, the bench.
Yeah. The victim actually went back to the park days later in the bright daylight to try and rationalize things. To prove to themselves it wasn't a big deal, they found that exact bench where the guy was sitting. Someone had hastily, aggressively carved letters deep into the wood and then deliberately smeared and gouged them so they couldn't be read.
A tangible mark of aggression.
And worse, they eventually got a friend who worked for the city to check the park's security cameras. The areas they ran through were fully covered by cameras, but the footage showed absolutely nothing. No guy in a hoodie entering the park, no one sitting on the bench, no one chasing them. It's like he never existed.
This is where the collapse of the social contract is total. A public park is supposed to be a place of transparency, but this stalker utilized the darkness to claim permanent, invisible residence in the victim's mind. The victim started avoiding the park entirely because the space no longer belonged to the community. It belonged to the unknown.
Which is terrifying, but that is psychological torture. What happens when the social contract doesn't just quietly dissolve in the shadows, but violently, aggressively snaps?
You're talking about the third account.
Yes. Our final story contrasts sharply with the solitary, silent stalker. This account shifts the focus from psychological ambiguity to pure, adrenaline-fueled physical survival.
We are moving from a passive, solitary predator to a coordinated, territorial threat. We are moving into environmental psychology and the concept of defensible space.
Let's lay out the final account. We have a group of 6 friends, and it is crucial to note the demographics here. These are 6 adult men, and they are all over 6 feet tall.
Not exactly your typical targets.
No, not at all. It's around 11 p.m. They are hanging out at a popular local spot called The Overlook, which has views of the downtown area. One of them happens to have some Roman candles in his trunk. They decide The Overlook is way too exposed to the main road to set off fireworks, so they pack up and drive over to a secluded, heavily wooded part of the park known simply as The Loop.
The urban design of the loop is vital to understanding the trap they walked into. It is described in the source as a massive cul-de-sac completely surrounded by dense, thick woods.
Right.
The driveway leading into it is a long, winding road that cuts through a heavy tree line. You absolutely cannot see into the loop from the main road. It is geographically isolated from the rest of society.
They park their cars outside the entrance and walk in on foot. As they get deeper into the darkness of this cul-de-sac, they start to notice things. There are several cars parked in different spots around the circle. Completely dark, engines off, lights off, nobody visibly inside them.
Red flag number 1.
Then, a small truck with its headlights totally off suddenly does a U-turn in the cul-de-sac and heads slowly toward them. The guys get a weird feeling and step off the asphalt, hiding behind some trees. The truck slowly passes, drives around the circle, stops, and then does another slow U-turn.
In behavioral science, this is known as a perimeter check. That vehicle is actively patrolling and controlling the space. They are establishing territorial dominance.
Now here's where I have to pause. I look at this scenario and think, you have 6 large guys, all over 6 feet tall, walking through a park at midnight. Statistically speaking, they are the demographic that other people cross the street to avoid. They're a large, physically imposing group. How do they go from being the alpha presence in the park to becoming prey so incredibly fast?
Because physical size is entirely irrelevant when you are dealing with organized intent.
Organized intent.
Yes. These men assumed they were in a public park governed by civil law. They didn't realize they had walked into a space governed by criminal law.
And they proved that by making a massive mistake. Despite the creepy truck and the dark cars, one of the friends decides this is the perfect, isolated time to light a Roman candle.
The worst possible move.
Right. The fuse sparks, and this bright, colorful light completely illuminates the cul-de-sac. Lighting that Roman candle was like dropping a bright flare in a deep, pitch-black ocean trench. It didn't just light up the space, it signaled to whatever apex predators were swimming down there the prey had arrived.
The flash of light acts as an instant catalyst.
Instantaneously. The moment the spark catches, the truck at the end of the loop turns its headlights on and the driver slams on the gas. The guys drop the firework and run toward the tree line, which slopes downward into a ravine.
Trying to break line of sight.
Exactly. The truck doesn't stay on the road, though. It literally jumps the concrete curb, drives tearing through the grass, flips on its blinding high beams, and lays on the horn, charging right at them. The 6 guys completely panic and scatter into the thick brush in the dark.
I want to highlight the disproportionate escalation here. If you light legal fireworks in a neighborhood late at night, you might provoke a neighbor to yell from a window.
Right, or call the cops.
Someone might call the police to file a noise complaint. Lighting a firework should never, under any normal social circumstances, provoke a vehicle to jump a curb and attempt to literally run you over.
They are sprinting blindly through thorny bushes and tall grass. They get completely separated in the chaos. The storyteller and two of his friends dive into a sunken, muddy part of the woods and squeeze themselves underneath a massive, dense bush, pressing their faces flat into the dirt.
Going into ground.
From their hiding spot, the terror goes to a whole new level. They hear heavy doors slamming open. Two men sprint down the embankment into the woods carrying heavy-duty flashlights. And then, the headlights of the other dark cars parked around the loop suddenly flick on, illuminating the top of the ravine.
This is a coordinated manhunt. The friends are trapped in a geographic bowl. They have men on foot sweeping the low ground with flashlights and vehicles providing high-angle illumination from the high ground.
They are completely boxed in. They lie there in the mud for 15 agonizing minutes, suppressing their breathing, while these men actively comb the woods looking for them. One of the friends who got separated later revealed he was hiding behind a tree nearby, and one of the hunters ran right past him in the dark.
Wow.
And that friend saw clearly that the man was carrying a large knife or some kind of melee weapon in his hand.
This is where we analyze the reality of the threat. The secluded location, the multiple vehicles sitting in the pitch black, the active perimeter checks, and the immediate weaponized aggression.
It's way beyond just angry locals.
Exactly. This suggests the friends didn't just annoy some teenagers trying to drink in the park. They accidentally illuminated a highly organized, illicit syndicate. Whether it was a narcotics transfer, a gang meeting, or something much worse, that Roman candle exposed them, in a fraction of a second, these 6 large men were transformed from innocent park-goers into hunted liabilities who had seen too much.
The fight-or-flight response must have completely warped their perception of time. Eventually, the truck reverses out of the grass, the other headlights click off, and the vehicles speed out of the park. But the guys have no idea if the men with flashlights stayed behind in the woods.
They can't assume it's clear.
No. They have to navigate a pitch-black, silent escape through the brush, absolutely refusing to use their phone flashlights.
Yeah.
When they finally creep near the main road exit, they see the small truck is sitting there waiting, idling in the dark.
Still hunting.
Yes. It flips its high beams on again and starts slowly pacing them along the tree line from the road. They have to plunge deeper back into the woods and hike miles out of their way through back roads just to escape. They genuinely, truly believed they were going to be murdered in the woods over a firework.
It perfectly illustrates our core thesis. The rules of the civil park were entirely suspended. They had unwittingly trespassed into a space that had been temporarily claimed by a totally different society.
So, synthesizing all of this, we've analyzed 3 deeply unsettling accounts today. We have the cognitive failure and impossible geometry of the toddler voice and the grinning woman tracking the bikes.
Right.
We have the agonizing psychological torture of the silent stalker utilizing predatory mirroring in the shadows. And we have the visceral, sheer survival terror of stumbling into a hostile, organized manhunt in the woods.
What unites every single one of these accounts is the underlying theme of environmental transformation. When the sun goes down, the shared understanding of how we behave in public spaces simply evaporates.
It just disappears.
It is a stark reminder to trust your primal instincts. When you are in a park at night and your gut tells you to run, it is not just paranoia. It is your brain's evolutionary hardware, recognizing that the environment lacks civilization and that you are no longer a citizen, you are potential prey. Do not wait for rational confirmation. Act on that instinct.
Because the script is gone, and the theater is totally dark, which leaves you with something to really mull over the next time you are out late.
Absolutely.
When you step into an empty public park in the dead of night, and the streetlights are humming and the shadows stretch across the grass, are you simply taking a peaceful, solitary walk? Or are you unwittingly trespassing on a stage that has been temporarily claimed by a completely hidden, nocturnal society, playing by its own incredibly dangerous rules?